Andrei. Come on. All right, so we're going to be here together.
Yeah.
I have a few questions that we had already prepared, and I'm not going to go in this order here, but let's start with something that our group had some questions about. When we talk about mediumship, there's often some reference to the pineal gland. And people are curious to know about what is this gland, does it have a role in mediumship, does it have a role when someone is in the process of developing their mediumship? Is there anything that happens to the gland or physiologically? What goes on? How can someone go from, for example, I'll tell you my case, right? So I was never ever experienced any mediumship, ostensive mediumship. Of course, always intuition. And then when I was in my late 30s, I started being part of a mediums group, and then suddenly it flourished. How does that happen? Is there any correlation with pineal gland or not? Easy question to warm up.
Yeah. Simple one.
Yeah.
So good morning, everyone. So this is not a simple question, and we do not have an extensive data about the pineal gland. We had a researcher in Brazil called Sérgio Felipe de Oliveira. He did some research about the pineal gland. And what we know is that Andrei taught us in the book Missionaries of the Light that this gland is a very important one in the process of mediumship. It functions as an open door integrating the brain and the mind, because the mind is not located on the brain. The mind is in the mental body, and the mental body is part of what we call perispirit, in Allan Kardec's sense of perispirit. Because peri is a prefix that means around there, and spirit is the intelligent principle of the universe. So the perispirit in Allan Kardec's concept are the amount of bodies that surround the spirit. We usually use this word to express our understanding about the astral body, which is one of the bodies that the spirit uses to express itself. But we have this knowledge about the vital body, the astral body, and the mental body. The mental body is where the mind is located. So the mental waves come from the mind, pass through all the other spiritual bodies, and arise on the brain through the pineal gland. So that's what we know. The pineal gland is this door that opens our perception to what happens in the most deep part of our mental reality. So what happens is that some people come to reincarnation with a very sensitive pineal gland, and these bodies are prepared to express one sensitivity that is above the normal. That's what we call the mediumship in a strict sense, because Susanna told us about the common sense. The common sense is we have all our minds are stations that can produce and receive mental waves and can express this connection between minds and between affections. But in a strict sense, mediumship is the ability to perceive the spirits in a more wide, more extensive sensibility. So when a person is prepared to be medium in this sense, his or her body is prepared to do it. So that means that the pineal gland is prepared to have a little bit more sensitivity, and all the neural circuits that connected the pineal gland with the other parts of the brain are also prepared to start a specific process. So if a person comes to reincarnation with an ability to incorporate spirits,
Yeah, incorporate.
Yeah, to incorporate spirits. So there's a specific part of the brain that is more able to start this neural process from the pineal gland to other parts of the brain. And if it is for psychography, another part. If it is to perceive the spirits by intuition or by vision, or to hear spirits, another part. So nowadays we have what we call neurophysiology of mediumship. We are studying that in our Medical Spiritist Association. And we have realized some very important things about which kind of area are activate and deactivate during the process of mediumship. And what we know about the pineal gland is that this gland is submitted to a process of calcification. So that means that crystals are formed around this gland, and these crystals are able to, they are sensible to magnetic fields. So they can perceive the magnetic fields and they can respond to it. So some kind of mediumship have specific situations happens on this gland. For example, when people have more ability to incorporate or to do more physical phenomena during mediumship, there's a process of calcification happens, and when it's more intuition or more intelligent manifestations, so there less process of calcification happens over there. That's what Serge Felipe discovered during this process. So what happens is that a person can have a body able to express the mediumship from the very childhood, or this mediumship can start or be more developed during the process of adulthood. This is not something that is unusual. Yeah, no, this is also very common, because it depends not only of the program, reincarnatory program of that person, but also of the decisions of that person along life, and what kind of path that person decides to have or to develop that allows the spirits to start a new process of serving and another possibility to work, because that's what mediumship is about. An opportunity to serve, an opportunity to be the intermediary between the spirits and the physical world. So we do not know anything about the size of the pineal gland, because there is no specific research about the size. We know about the calcification, we know about the meaning of this gland for the mediumship, we know about these neural circuits that are integrated with the pineal gland, what today we call the neurophysiology of mediumship.
Okay, let me just take a break here, and I'm going to open back to you, and let's see if you have any questions about this topic before we move forward. I just want to clarify something that Allan Kardec in the Medium's book clarifies himself. We use the word incorporation, and so it's very important that we understand that the spirit does not doing any mediumistic process. It doesn't matter which one is. The spirit does not take over the body of the person. There's no two spirits occupying the same body. So incorporation, Allan Kardec himself says, would not be the ideal word per se. So it's a mental process. One spirit connecting to the other spirit through the perispirit, through these bodies, mind to mind. Okay?
Yeah, let me show this.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I look for some. So I looked for this image because I think they are a resume about this knowledge. So here you have the pineal gland illuminated, enlightened by the mental waves and the spiritual process that come from within. That means from the waves that come from the mental body and from the decisions of the spirits, from our free will. That's what happens, for example, when we pray. We create a specific magnetic field around us. And that's what is represented in the saints' paintings. Aureola. Como chama aureola in English? Halo. Yeah, that halo, that enlightened halo from the saints, that is an expression of this very high and very intense magnetic field that we produce around us. So our mind is a station that produces waves and that captures waves all the times. And here you can see the process of mediumship. I like very much this image because it shows us a process of painting. Actually, a process of natural painting during our daily lives. And this we can understand as a natural process of mediumship. But the process that happens during our mediunic sessions is the same. So here you have the person connected to something. So this person is concentrated doing something and it's present. Here it's a daily work, but it could be a mediunic process, and this person could be concentrate to prayer and to elevate its frequency in order to attune those who are in a high symphony. So here you see there's blue waves that the person produces, and these blue waves are in symphony with that high here.
Middle. Okay.
Here. So these blue waves are in symphony with these high spirits, and you can see that these high spirits that we can see here with a symbol that Alex Gray, the painter, wanted to express the elevation of this spirit. This spirit produces a projection of its own mind in the middle of the brain. So where is it? In the mental body that here is represented by the pineal gland. So that's the process of mediumship. A mind integrates to another mind in a very process of spiritual symphony in the same mental and emotional waves. In order for this to happen, frequently we need to elevate our frequency, and the high spirits need to decrease their frequency, so we get together in the middle and we can integrate. But what common happens is that they decrease a lot in order to allow us to integrate, because we do not prepare ourselves enough to reach them. So that's what happens during the process of mediumship. But you can see that the coronary chakra is opened, and this person can also connect not only to minds but also to mental forms. That means the elevated forms that are produced by other minds and other ideas that surround us, and we can absorb them and we can feel them and we can be inspired or influenced by them. So that's what's happened here. His coronary chakra is opened, he's receiving mental forms. These allow him to have inspiration, ideas, to clarify his mind and so on. But you can also see that another minds came closer and they are around him in order to see what he's doing. What kind of minds are those? They are the ones that are attuned to him in this kind of work. That means, in this case, the painters. So here we have the very famous painters represented here, as they were attracted by his work in order to influence him as well. That's what Allan Kardec called our spiritual affinities, or the sympathetic spirits.
Yeah, affinity.
Yeah. So the spirits that surround us, attracted by what we decide to do. That happens all day. But you can also see that here we have another kind of spirits. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So here it's more clear. Yeah, if you turn the light down, if this is possible, you can see here another kind of spirits. And they want also to influence this guy, but it is possible for them to influence? No, because this magnetic field that's produced by his choices and his decisions do not allow these spirits to interact with him or to act on him. So that's the natural protection that we produce with our magnetic field. So this is a process of mediumship, and this happens naturally in our daily lives, but this can be produced when someone with a specific sensitivity doing a specific work, concentrate, attract the spirits that are connected to that kind of job, and allow that to happen. I want to tell you a brief history about that, just to clarify. Actually, is a case report of my own experience that happens with my mother. My mother, in my house, I'm the only spiritist, and I'm the spiritist since the childhood. My parents are Catholics, and they also heard me to say that I was a spiritist, and they looked at me like a freak. What is this? This guy is telling he is, because nobody in my family was a spiritist. And I grew up in a Protestant school, and I was the only spiritist there. And then I became a teenager, and then I got to know what spiritism was for the first time, that to think that I usually said that I was. And my mother so often look at that, and but nobody in my house are truly spiritists in the sense of following the spiritist movement in this sense. And my mother is a painting for pleasure. She does that because she loves. And one afternoon she was trying to do a specific work, and she could not do it because it was a new technique that she wanted to perform, and she could not reach that technique. And suddenly, after all an afternoon trying to do it, she said to me that she thought like this: oh, if what Andrei says is true, that may be an spirit that can help me. And so she decided to ask for help for the painters. So she asked for Renoir, for Van Gogh, and for so on to help her. And then she said that suddenly she felt something strange, and she did the technique very easily. And then she looked, she stopped what she was doing, and she thought, oh my God, that's real. So one day I told her, oh, Mother, do you know that I tell this history during my lectures? And she asked me to tell her how I tell her history. And she said, no, it was not like this. And I said, no, I'm lying. She said, yes, I did not ask for Renoir, for Van Gogh. Oh, no, I asked for Michelangelo. So I found her very humble. But what happened at that afternoon? Probably there was an spirit around her trying to inspire her that knew the technique, and she did not open her mind in order to accept that influence. And then that spirit asked her, please make a prayer, elevate a little bit your frequency in order for us to help you, because we know this technique, it's very easy for us. You can receive, you can perceive that, but you need to open your mind in order to receive this influence. And when she did the prayer, so she elevated the frequency, and then the mediunic process, the natural mediunic process happened, and then she knew how to do it. So that's what happened during mediumship.
We have a question back there.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the connection and relation between the pineal gland and melatonin, the release of melatonin?
Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
We have a mic if you want to say.
Okay, all right, so
just the relation between the melatonin and the pineal gland and the release of melatonin, how it impacts mediumship, and in the darkness, is it true that more release of melatonin also causes higher sensitivity of the pineal gland?
Yeah, this is an hypothesis, but this has not been proved yet. What we know is that the mediunic process happens more easily during darkness, and this is related to the function of the pineal gland. But some research that has been done recently with mediums did not show an elevated level of melatonin on the blood. So that means that we do not know yet if this connection is exclusively on the process of releasing of melatonin. So this is still to be researched. So what we know is that most mediunic process happens more easily during the on the darkness, and that may be correlate to melatonin or to other productions of the pineal gland or other neurological processes that are still unknown to us. Okay?
One more question before we're going to change gears a little bit. John?
Is the pineal gland known as the third eye? And besides prayer to raise your frequency, what else is there?
Yes, not exactly the pineal gland is known as the third eye. This chakra,
Coronary.
the frontal. The frontal one, it's known as the third eye because he is between the two eyes, and it is connected to one specific gland, but it's not the pineal one. The pineal is connected to the coronary chakra, and so that's what is important. So this pineal gland is the door to the perceptions of our mental and spiritual world, and it's connected to a neurological process in our brain.
So to raise our frequency.
Oh, the raise, yeah. That's because I forgot your last question. So the raise, the elevation of our frequency can be done by prayer, by meditation, by mediumship process, by natural process of synchrony with goodness. So whenever we are in tune with love, we elevate the frequency of ourselves, the whole body, not only the pineal gland. That allow us to perceive and to receive the influence of the most elevated frequency. So what brings us the opportunity to elevate our frequencies is the synchrony with natural laws.
Yeah, that's well put. Sometimes people think in prayer and meditation, but they'll come to a point that our way of living will be a constant prayer.
Yeah.
Once we, every single act and every moment of our lives is connected to the will to manifest love and to be of service, you are in a constant state of prayer. So it is that mindset, that connection, that expression of God at all times that naturally elevates your frequency. We resort to prayer because we are often so disconnected that we need that particular instrument to help us to rise our frequency in that way. We're going to talk a little bit because that's a very common topic in a lot of spiritual center where people come in and they are sometimes experiencing disturbing phenomena such as hearing voices or not knowing themselves anymore, and they come and they say to us, I'm obsessed, I need to work my mediumship. And so, and a lot of times, it seems that there's more than obsession. There is some serious psychiatric issues going on. So for the spiritist practitioner, it's difficult sometimes to be able to say what is what. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this is not quite easy to distinguish, but we have some clues about it that we can use in our daily lives if we are not a doctors and a specific person that studied this area. We can have these hearing voices and these mental phenomena also in mediumship and also in mental disorders. So there's a particular researcher in Brazil called Alexandre Moreira Almeida that made a research about mediums, spiritist mediums, and he showed that these mediums had all the positive phenomena for schizophrenia diagnosis, but they do not have the negative phenomena. That means all the mediums, as the schizophrenic ones, showed that they could hear voices, they could see spirits, they could perceive and have sensations that were not perceived by other persons. But these persons, these mediums, did not have the negative phenomena. That means the disintegration of the mental structure or the disturbance in their lives that are produced by the mental illnesses. So this was a very important research because all mediums were considered to be schizophrenic ones by psychiatry. And nowadays we have at least an open mind inside psychiatry to see the cultural and the religious background of that person in order to not consider everything as a mental illness. But we have another problem that is, in our spiritist movement, many times we consider everything as mediumship. And we do not perceive sometimes that manifestations are symptoms of mental illnesses. So, how to distinguish one from each other? It's not that easy, but we have to understand that person and to get to know that reality through time. That means it's not an evaluation of one moment, because mediumship can start with a disturbance as well, with an obsessive process that sometimes can seems to be a mental disorder. They can produce a lot of physical symptoms, a lot of emotional disturbance, especially in those that are beginning the process of developing mediumship. That happens frequently during the teenagers and during the first adulthood. And so we can realize that something is mediumship and that something is mental illnesses when we get to know the life of that person before that process, when we can go with that person along the process and we can see how it reacts to the spiritual interventions. Because in mental illnesses we have a destructuration. Yes.
A disorganization.
A disorganization of the mind and of the life of that person before that process. Usually, not all the times, but usually. In the mediunic process, we have something that happens suddenly. The mediunic process are very sensible. Muito sensível. Sensitive. Yes, very sensitive to spiritual interventions, and the mental illnesses don't. So the hallucinations and the delirium does not change with the process of magnetic application. So a schizophrenic person or a psychotic person does not have any influence of passes in the process of hallucination, in the process of become more calm and more and less aggressive, yes, but not in the process of delirium and hallucinations. But the medium, yes, the medium is very sensitive to this kind of approach. So when we have the magnetic intervention, when we disconnect the mental waves or the emotional waves that change the medium's behavior instantly and very deeply, but not the psychotic one. So this is a very important clue that we use in our daily lives in order to evaluate. I remember, for example, a moment where when I was developing mediumship, that I felt something very, very strong as an anger, as a process of aggressivity, very strong, that I felt that I could kill someone, that something was so important, and then I noticed that because that was sudden. And when I make a prayer, a very long and deep prayer, because this is not a process that can be we can find a solution with a simple prayer of 30 seconds. Yeah. So when I did a deep prayer, so that calms down, and when I end up the prayer, I looked for that feeling, I looked for that movement, and I asked myself, where was it? Where is it? It was here, right now. I could kill someone right now, but now I do not feel anything more, because it's not a process that was mine. I was absorbing, I was feeling it naturally because I was in tune with that. I accept that frequency to influence me, so I could feel as if it was mine, but it was not. So the medium is very sensitive to this kind of applications. So the process of this obsession helps a lot the medium and allows the medium to become more connected to itself and more in its natural way. The process of this obsession also helps a lot the psychotic person to relieve the aggressivity and the sympathy with the obsessor process. Yes, obsessors, but does not change the psychotic phenomena. That's very important. That this obsession does not change the psychotic phenomena. We can have a person that is also psychotic and also medium, yes, and that's a little bit hard to diagnose. We have some in the psychiatric spiritist hospital Andrei, and but they are well known as schizophrenics or so on. So it's easy there to get to know when the mediunic process is happening. But sometimes during our daily lives it's difficult. So what we need to know is when someone comes to a spirit center and that person say that he or she is seeing spirits or hearing spirits or feeling something, we have to submit that person to the magnetic treatment. We do not have to take that person to a mediunic session right away, because this could be very dangerous for the psychotic. The mediunic process for those who are psychotic can start a psychotic crisis. So this could be very dangerous. So this person has to be welcome, has to be submitted to a magnetic process of treatment through passes, through this obsession process, if the spirit center has this to offer, and to be accompanied by some time in order to see what happens with that person. The process is the process of education, is to welcome that person, to give education, to give them opportunity, and to see a long time what can happen. Because the psychotic phenomena need to be addressed by specific remedies, specific medicines that can help those persons to control the psychotic phenomena. The psychotic process does not have, cannot be healed during life, but can be controlled. And this can be taken into control, and the person can have a very common life. If you are talking about the most deep psychotics, which are the schizophrenic ones, but if you are talking about someone with psychotic symptoms, we can have someone, for example, with a depression and psychotic symptoms, and with some hallucination, with some delirium. This can be healed, and this can be well changed. But when we have someone with a deep diagnosis of a psychotic disorder, so this cannot be healed, this can be controlled. Okay?
Let's take a break here and open for questions. Can you pass the microphone back there, please?
I want to ask. Desce ele veio.
Esse aqui?
Question?
Eu vou também.
With this particular aspect for the schizophrenia, I was listening to the talk from Sergio Filippi, the neurophysiology of thought, and he was talking about using neuroimaging to distinguish. So I did some research, and because schizophrenia has no any biomarker, neuroimaging is well researched to try to diagnose properly schizophrenia. How does the research of Dr. Sergio Filippi distinguish from the medical one? And for example, you talk about the medication like Haldol. Haldol is also very tricky because once you give the medication, if you don't take the medication anymore, the next psychotic events and hallucinations can be greater.
Yeah.
So how we walk this fine line between giving alternative therapy advice and respecting the protocol of the psychiatric field?
Yeah. This is very challenging because the vast majority of psychiatrists.
Psychiatrists.
Yeah, psychiatrists does not know anything about this spiritual reality. So they take all of this phenomena as psychotic phenomena. Even though today we have enough data to at least consider the cultural and the religious background of that person. So it's not quite easy. We do not have a protocol for that. We need to understand each experience as an individual one, and study and understand every person as an individuality, and to study that specific case. There's not an answer, a common answer that I can give to this kind of question. For example, we in Medical Spiritist Association, we are very used to both to mediumship and to psychiatric disorders, and we study every and single case that comes as specifically. We discuss the medication, we discuss the need and the effects, and discuss in groups many times. So this is not easy to.
There's no recipe.
Yes, there's no recipe. Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
About that case, okay. That the intervention helped, and the medium became a great medium for a doctor who talks about it afterwards.
Just to be respectful of everyone, one question per person, please.
Yeah, my question is about mediumship. I wasn't raised in a Spiritist family, but in my home, they used to take me to Umbanda places where we used to go to cure, some pains, or sometimes...
Speak close to the microphone, please.
Or find out if your soccer club's going to win next day. But the thing is that when we were talking to the medium there, he was posing like I was talking directly to the spirit. The spirit was answering directly to me. Is this a fraud, or the spirit can talk to the interviewer directly, or the medium just...
No, it's not a fraud. The spirits can talk directly to the person. Yeah, no problem. That depends on the kind of mediumship and the kind of work where that mediumship happens. So in Umbanda, in other specific religions, and in some spiritist center as well in Brazil, you can talk directly to spirits. But this is not a common thing that, and it's not something that we really need to have it. We have some ideas about the spirits and their intervention that we want to, that Allan Kardec helped us to extend. For example, there are a lot of spirits in different levels of knowledge and spiritual development. So any spirits can come to the mediumship process. It depends on what kind of work is done and what kind of syntony is established in that specific work. So this does not mean that if a spirit is there and a spirit can talk, that the spirit has answers or the spirit knows everything to know. So people sometimes want to talk directly to spirits if the spirit has the wisdom to answer our questions. The most important thing is not to talk to spirits. The most important thing is to evolve our spirits, or to evolve us as a spirit. This is the most important process. As we evolve, as we change ourselves, as we become better persons, we get in tune naturally with those who love us and that can influence us in a positive way, so they can guide us directly. So that's the most important mediumship process that we need to develop.
When I was a kid, and I had a feeling that the medium would step aside and the spirit would talk to me directly, even changing voices. And
Let's pass it on to Heather, please. Next question. I just want, while the microphone is moving, I want to say something about consulting the spirits. It's very easy to, and a lot of people want to get messages from the spirits, and without thinking that after you receive it, now you have this responsibility to actually do what the spirit is telling you to do. So we are in a case of rage, for example, in a dispute with someone. Oh, I want a message, I want some guidance. The spirit comes and says, okay, my dear, you need to forgive. So now that you ask, there it is, your answer. Now you have a lot of work to do. So sometimes I prefer not to ask. Yeah, because once you get it, then now you have a lot of work to do, you know what I mean? Heather.
Yeah, thank you. So in the process of the synchronization, you talked about how the incarnate spirit to synchronize with the discarnate spirit. There is, on the incarnate side, often we elevate our frequency or our vibration in order to attune with the spirit of a higher vibration. So, and on the other side, it being common for the discarnate spirit to try to meet us so that the two can establish that synchronization. And we discussed the different ways that we can elevate our own vibration. And I'm curious about the process for the discarnate spirit to try to, and I imagine it's not precisely lowering their vibration per se, or maybe you can explain or clarify better. How does the process happen on their side and when they're trying to meet us? What actually is happening?
Andrei Luiz described this process in his books. And what the spirits does is trying to perceive what is the level of mental wave that we are producing and try to get in tune with that process naturally. That means that sometimes they need to decrease their light. That does not mean the ability or the possibility that they have, but the expression of that momentarily in order to get us in tune and allow us to receive the amount of information or spiritual vibration that we can absorb and we can channel. That's what is the mediumship about. If a high spirits come and try to reach me with a very high vibration and I cannot reach that quantic level, would not be useful. So this spirit needs to contract its frequency a little bit, need to change the way it is expressed in order to get in tune. So the spirits can use his mental force, can use his affective force, can use his process of natural hypnosis to get in tune with the vibration of that mind. So this is what they use to establish a connection with us. And for them sometimes it's a very hard process. I remember a mediunic sessions where very high spirits came to us and said, for us, spirits that are in the level that the mentors of this spirit center has reached, for us to stay in tune with you, producing us the same perception that you have when you come into I forget even Portuguese.
And I cannot help you.
Onde a gente cria porco?
Onde a gente cria porco?
Chiqueiro. Yes, chiqueiro. How you say chiqueiro in English? Huh? Ham.
Yeah, that's the...
A galinha?
Não, o porco.
Porco. Pig.
Big side.
Yeah, you know the places where we cultivate pigs?
Yeah.
Yeah. In Brazil, we have a very natural process. So when we get into that, we can feel, oh, that smell, that's not good, and it's a very particular one. Every Brazilian knows. So he said to us, for us to get in tune with you, produce on us the same effect that you have when you get into this.
And this is why, in Spiritism, when we think about Jesus, and we think about, most Christian religions like to think about Jesus dying on the cross as the greatest sacrifice that he did for us. But imagine a spirit at the level of Jesus, the work that it was necessary to be done to his vibratory level for him to be able to incarnate amongst us.
So after he said that, he said, for us, this produces the same feeling that you have, but we stay. And we stay because we love you. But he said, but for you to feel what we have to share with you more deeply, you need to elevate your frequency and your vibration in order for you to feel what we have to give you. Yes. So this was a specific talk this spirit gave to spiritist workers during a specific meeting of spiritual treatment. He was saying to us, we need you to get more prepared to work. We need you to pay attention what you eat, what you feel, what you think, what you do with your body, how you prepare, if you eat good or not, if you sleep or not, if you are rest or not, and you need to come to work to give yourself to this work more prepared in order to receive more that we have to give you.
This speaks about the importance of preparation for mediums' work, where we come to attune to the higher spirits in order to help the ones who are in need. I also want to mention the book Non Solar, which is the book that we are promoting this month, because in there's a specific the specific case of Andrei Lewis, where he was surrounded by the good spirits for a long time and unable to perceive the spirits. And often we have this feeling of loneliness, that the good spirits are not with us, that God has forgotten about us. And God is always there. The good spirits are always there. But there's only so much that they can do for us. They expect for us to do a little bit of our part, which is to raise ourselves. So they walk 10 steps towards us. We need to walk at least one towards them, right? So that's what we were talking about. So I just want to bring up this book because it's a book that I highly, highly recommend. And we have a special on this book this month here at Conscious Living. I have Elcio and then I'll have Carla.
Yes, mediumship has been with the human race forever. I mean, since the beginning. What is the relation between mediumship and Jesus? So when he came here?
Very easy. Jesus was the medium of God.
But did that influence in the mediumship growth after he came, or there was no difference?
If it changed the way we understand mediumship?
I think that with Jesus, we do not become more mediums, we become more useful mediums. That means when we understand Jesus, when we feel Jesus, when we get to know his principles, which are the natural laws principles, we get in tune with the high frequencies naturally. So that means that we can be more useful and we can give our mediumship the direction that it needs to be. That means that we can serve life wherever we want whenever we want and wherever we are, we can serve life with this gift that is the ability to perceive and to feel the spirits.
Yes, I think in line with what Andrei is saying, what Jesus did for mediumship is that, mediumship was just a phenomena that attracted people's attention. In the United States, a lot of times it's showtime. And for some people, it's entertainment. And there are mediums they use to help others. But in Spiritism, it's strictly used in the way that Jesus did. It's always at service in order to help others and to make humanity a better place. We will not have time for more questions. Carla is the last one. We'll be around after the meeting if anyone wants to talk, but we will follow our time, our schedule. So, Carlinha.
I would like to know, thank you. I would like to know how it's going to be on a mediumship group, and then becomes a message, and what is the influence of the mediums? Because sometimes, I can talk to you and you know my problem. How is going to be the message related with the influence of the medium, and how you see that?
All mediunic process has the influence of the medium. There's no mediunic process without the medium. The medium takes a very important part in the process of mediumship, because the anemic part of the medium is what allows the spirit to perform the mediunic process. So the spirits use the medium's knowledge, the medium's language, the medium's abilities, because they are using the medium as a tool, and this tool has specific properties. So we have different kinds of mediumships. We have the intuitive one, we have the mechanical one. In the intuitive, the medium becomes more aware about what is happening. In the mechanical one, the medium goes out and the spirit uses the body more freely. And this is more rare. The more common is the intuitive process. So the medium influence on the process of mediumship, yes. But if you're talking about someone that knows our problem, and during that process, that message can be understood by the process of that person, so we are not talking about the anemic exclusively process. We are talking about the phenomena of mystification.
Mystification, no?
Mystification. When someone give a message pretending that that message is from the spirits. So it's a very different process. In the anemic process, the medium takes part, but takes part unconsciously. And so this is natural. This cannot be apart from mediumship. But when someone gives a message, pretending that that message is from the spirits, so we have a process of mystification. So what is important? What is important is that when we receive a message, we analyze that message. We understand what that means for us. And we understand that what comes from the spirits or from mediumship are not rules, are just advices, are just signs that we can take it or not. It depends on us. So we need to analyze each and every message that we receive. This is what Allan Kardec teach us on the Medium's book. He did not give any importance to the name that signed the message, nor sometimes to the message itself, because he analyzed the message deeply, and that's what we need to do. If the message is good, this does not matter if it comes from the medium or comes from the spirit. You know, if that it is useful for us, so we use for good, and we respect that process. We do not give the medium any importance, any special importance, because the medium is just a server, and we do not give to the name that signed the message any special importance. So we analyze every message, okay? So I want to suggest to you to study these subjects, 2 specific books. I brought some books for you. Unfortunately, only available in Portuguese, for instance. And in this particular field of mental health, we have this book called Mental Health, which shows us 47 case reports from a specific office, that is from Jaider Rodrigues de Paulo. Jaider is the one that we respect most in Brazil. He's the founder of the Médico Espiritista Association in Minas Gerais. Is one of the leader psychiatrists in this field, and here he presents 47 case reports from his office and from the Espiritista Psychiatric Hospital Andrei Luiz. And also in this book, Histories of Life, these are cases from the Espiritista Psychiatric Hospital Andrei Luiz in Brazil, but these are described by the mentors. So the mentors describe the case, and they describe the past and the integration between these spirits. In this book, we have a very important case report that I want to show you, and it's one from a psychotic patient that we have there that start to draw and to write in German. And when we got to research that what he did, he produced it, we got to know that were names of persons and explanations about that person. All the names were real, all the explanations were also real. But this guy got sick when he was 9 years old, and from that moment on, he only lived in psychiatric hospital. He has never had nor a specific school education, nor access to books or to internet. But he speaks, he draw things in German, and all the names were from Nazi directors, and all the explanations were real. He knew the history of Nazism deeply. We had to make a deep research in order to realize what he was describing. And one day, during this process, he came to a specific therapeutic work with 3 professionals, and he started to cry and to ask for forgiveness. And that professionals looked to him and said to him, "Why are you asking us to forgive you? What have you done to us?" And he said, "Oh, I send all of you 3 to the oven."
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then all the 3 professionals cried with him, and then he come back to hallucination. And at that night, in our mediunic session, the Spirit asked us to stop the research about his identity, because all that natural regression was already useful for him to start the process of repentance. So this is a very important case that we report here with the things that he wrote, and all the research that we did. Is a very important case report that we have here. And yeah, so that's what I have to share with you. And the other books from me and for the professionals from the Spiritist Medical Association is there, and I can show you. Thank you very much.